Compared with other major clinical disorders, little systematic research has been devoted to psychopathy, even though it is responsible for more social distress and disruption than all other psychiatric disorders combined. Dr. Robert Hare. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a psychopath as a person having an egocentric and antisocial personality marked by a lack of remorse for one's actions, an absence of empathy for others, and often criminal tendencies. This disorder is thrown around a lot, but many high-profile criminals, such as serial killers and the like, are found on this list. Our case today was one of the first publicly recognized psychopaths in South Korea. Yoo Young-chul was born sometime in 1970 in South Korea. His parents separated shortly after his birth, and his grandmother raised him and his siblings for a few years. Eventually, the kids moved in with their father in the Mapo district of Seoul. Young-chul's father was a blue-collar worker, and the family lived in poverty. Due to this, he was relentlessly teased by his classmates. The teasing made him grow resentful of wealthy people. Growing up, Young-chul took an interest in art. He was talented and had a wide range of skills, such as playing guitar, singing, painting, and poetry. His love of art was deep enough to want to apply to an arts-based high school. Unfortunately, Young-chul was humiliated during a colorblind test and was inevitably rejected from the school. Had he been accepted, things may have turned out differently for him and his victims. With his dream of art school dashed, Young-chul enrolled in a technical high school instead. This was when he started turning to criminal activities. Theft was his first crime of choice, and he spent time in juvenile detention because of it. The late 80s and early to mid-90s were busy for Young-chul between life events and his sticky fingers. In 1988, he was charged with theft, then again in 1991. In 1992, he married his girlfriend. He received another theft charge in 1993, and his son was born in 1994. In 1995, he changed up his routine and was charged with selling child pornography. Then, a few years later, in 1998, he added forgery, identity theft, and another theft charge to his rap sheet. Young-chul was arrested yet again in 2000, but this time it was for the rape of a 15-year-old girl. He was sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison. While in prison, his wife divorced him. He was eventually released in 2003. When he got out, Young-chul used a fake ID and police badge to extort money from prostitutes. He would threaten them with arrest if they didn't do what he wanted. But extortion was just the beginning. On September 24, 2003, Young-chul broke into a house he believed belonged to an affluent family. Inside, he found an elderly couple, 72-year-old university professor Lee Dok-soo and his 67-year-old wife Lee An-ok. Young-chul stabbed Dok-soo in the neck, and An-ok pleaded for her life. She told Young-chul there was money in the closet, to which he replied, "Do you think I'm doing this for money?" He then bludgeoned both of them to death with a 4-kilogram or roughly 9-pound hammer. Not long after he killed the couple, Young-chul targeted another home. On October 9th, he broke in and bludgeoned all 3 residents to death with his hammer. He started with 85-year-old Kang Eun-sun, then moved to her 60-year-old daughter-in-law, Lee Soon-jin, and finished with her 35-year-old disabled grandson, Go Jin-soo. Repeating this pattern on October 16th, Young-chul broke into the home of 60-year-old Yoo Jun-hee and took her life with his hammer. She was found by her son, who called emergency services, but it was too late. A month later, Young-chul broke into another home and used his hammer to kill 87-year-old Kim Jang-sok and her 53-year-old housekeeper, Bae Ji-hai. Until now, Young-chul had been making his murders look like robbery homicides to cover his tracks, Police investigators were always thrown off when no money was taken from the homes of the victims. However, during the November 18th break-in, Young-chul cut himself while trying to open a safe. He decided to burn the house down to cover any DNA, breaking from his established MO. On December 11th, Young-chul started dating an escort. Unfortunately for him, she found out about his criminal past and told him never to contact her again. Young-chul did not take this well, decided to turn his murderous attention on escorts, prostitutes, and female masseuses. Young-chul caught another theft charge in January 2004, but was released a few days later. He then fell silent for a couple of months. In March, he started calling prostitutes to his home in the Mapo district of Seoul. He would have sex with them, then kill them. He started with 23-year-old Kwon Jin-hee. On March 16th, he choked her to death and dismembered her body. He put the pieces in plastic bags and disposed of them on a trail near Sogang University. His next victim was 44-year-old street vendor Ahn Jae-sun. The man supposedly sold Young-chul fake Viagra, which set him off. He wrestled Jae-sun into his own van on April 13th, handcuffed him, and killed him. The next day, he sawed Jae-sun's hands off, disposed of them in a plastic bag, and then set the van on fire. Young-chul then returned to his hatred of women and hired another prostitute on May 5th. He lured 25-year-old Kim Hee-sun into his apartment, where he bludgeoned her to death, smashed her head in, and decapitated her in his bathroom. He then mutilated her body, put the pieces in bags, and buried her remains near Bongwon Temple in Sodaemun. This was exactly how he would kill 9 more women over the next 2 months. 33-year-old Shin Mi-na was killed on May 7th. 35-year-old Han Suk-ja on June 2nd. 29-year-old Chung Young-ae on June 4th. 26-year-old Jang Kwang on June 9th. 27-year-old Kim Ji-ho on June 18th. 28-year-old Woo Ki-yeon on June 25th. 26-year-old Kim Mi-young on July 2nd. 24-year-old Go Sun-hee on July 9th. 27-year-old Im Mi-yeon on July 13th. The local pimps noted the frequency that one number would call their agencies. They connected it to the women who had gone missing and decided something needed to be done. They contacted the police and voluntarily collaborated with officers to catch the man responsible. A trap was set up at the massage parlor that Young-chul called to hire the women he had killed. The employees waited at the shop with one officer. The officer left before Young-chul showed up, but the shop employees weren't about to let him go free. When he arrived at the shop, the employees ambushed and apprehended him. Another officer arrived and put Young-chul in handcuffs. While in custody, Young-chul faked symptoms of an epileptic seizure. The officer loosened his restraints, which allowed Young-chul to escape. He attempted the same trick in 2000 after being arrested for rape. This time, however, he was successful. He managed to evade police for 12 hours before being apprehended on July 15th. In his initial police interviews, Young-chul confessed to killing 19 people, claiming it was due to his hatred of the wealthy. This didn't line up with his actions, as most of his victims were blue-collar or sex workers. On July 18th, he admitted to killing the street vendor. Then on the 19th, an additional 6 murders, including one in February of a young clothing store employee. In their investigation, police uncovered 11 dismembered bodies from a gorge near Bongwon Temple. A month after his arrest, Young-chul confessed to eating the flesh of his victims, but there was no proof of this. The psychologist who interviewed him concluded he was not mentally ill, though he did display typical antisocial characteristics. This is when a person creates their own belief system based on the rejection of societal norms. His hatred of women was also clear. He even claimed a desire to kill his ex-wife, but didn't because of their son. Despite the psychologist's conclusion, Young-chul had a history of mental and medical disorders. He faked his epilepsy symptoms on arrest because he believed he would soon die of the illness, as both his father and brother had died of epilepsy. When police searched his apartment, they discovered 3 DVDs in his computer desk: the Korean film Public Enemy, which details the life of a serial killer, and 2 US films, Very Bad Things and Normal Life, which also had killers as protagonists. Police believed these movies were like guides or models for Young-chul's murders. They also found Young-chul's art, which included realistic, nearly picture-perfect nudes of actresses and other women. What they did not find, however, was much physical evidence. In late July, when police were bringing Young-chul to the prosecutor's office, the mother of one of the victims tried to attack him. She rushed at him with an umbrella, screaming that her daughter would still be alive if the police had captured him earlier. The officer holding on to Young-chul kicked the woman in the chest to subdue her, claiming his hands were occupied holding Young-chul. The trial began a couple of months later on September 6th. It was not a smooth trial. Young-chul refused to defend himself and intended to boycott the remainder of the trial. He was forced to return to court 2 weeks later, where he lunged at the 3 presiding judges. He also recanted his confession of the February 2004 Imyeon-dong murder of the clothing store employee. Young-chul refused to appear in court on October 4th after attempting suicide the night before. Then, at a hearing 3 weeks later, he tried to attack a spectator who cursed at him. He was then forced to sign a statement pledging not to cause further disruption. When the trial went forward, prosecutors requested the death penalty, for which Young-chul thanked them. He was inevitably sentenced to death on December 13, 2004, for 20 counts of murder. The count for the February murder had been thrown out. This case fueled the debate over capital punishment in South Korea. While the death penalty is still permissible under the law, it has not been implemented since 1997. There was very little support for it at the time, but it has grown stronger since this case came to light. Upon sentencing, the Seoul Central District Court said, "Murderers of as many as 20 people are unprecedented in the nation and constitute very serious crime. The death penalty is inevitable for you in light of the enormous pains inflicted on the families concerned and on society." Young-chul was detained at the Seoul Detention Center. At first, he was not made to do hard work. He ate the biggest portion of the food brought for the prisoners, he knocked on the doors late at night to have guards boil water for his coffee, and he behaved recklessly. His behavior and attitude led to a group of gangsters beating him up. In November 2014, it was confirmed that Young-chul was smuggling Japanese comics, adult picture books, and erotic novels into prison by bribing the guards. He was then transferred to the strict surveillance Daegu Correctional Institution. In 2023, he was transferred back to Seoul Detention Center. Professor and profiler Kwon Il-jung interviewed Young-chul. In the interview, Young-chul mentioned Richard Chase and a television program where they did a segment on the killer. He said, "Chase is mentally ill, but I am not." However, Yoo Young-chul became the first publicly recognized psychopath in Korea. Before this, the term was largely unfamiliar to the public, and people thought there had to be a reason behind crimes committed. Young-chul's case became pivotal in criminal psychology in Korea, and criminal profiling, which was introduced in 2001, gained more significance. In 2024, former correctional officer Lee Yoon-hui was interviewed on SBS TV's Story of the Day When You Bite Your Tail, a crime documentary series. He shared stories about his 7 years of weekly interviews with Young-chul. Yoon-hui said that Young-chul complained he couldn't sleep at night because his victims appeared to him as ghosts. He showed no remorse for his crimes. He even offered to share, in full, gory detail, the events of the murders with the victims' families. At the date of writing, Yoo Young-chul remains imprisoned, waiting to carry out his sentence. No matter your stance on capital punishment, it is clear that a harsh and strict punishment is needed for the senseless killing of so many people. Young-chul has no regard for human life, which was obvious in his actions, and his form of punishment likely means just as little to him.